The BMW M3, a name so important to car enthusiasts that each new generation is scrutinized more than a Star Wars prequel. On paper, we should like it. Rear-wheel drive, manual, powerful turbocharged engine. But we know specs don't make a car, so we have to go drive it. Usually this is the part where I go out on the road and tell you how it feels, but Dai was so excited to try the drift analyzer that he grabbed the keys first. Tell a drift driver to do a normal race lap and you're like, but what about a little drifting?
But it's kind of cool. You can't even drive fast and it doesn't step out. You have kind of option to do it.
It just sticks?
Yeah, it just sticks. See, I feel like it's gonna come up. It doesn't.
Wow.
It's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
My brain is definitely further to this side of my skull now, so it feels like there's a good amount of grip.
I'm actually pretty surprised in this performance, to be honest.
So they did a lot of stuff with this car. They widened the front track by 1.5 inches.
Okay.
It's 2 inches longer than the F80. And they also changed the caster angle and some other stuff up front.
Oh.
So it's like they try to make it a little more stable, but also more agile. So maybe that's why it's not as twitchy as the F80 was.
Gotcha. Because overall, I think this has more grip, but when I want to step out, it can, and then it's very easy to control.
Okay.
Yeah.
The F80 like snapped out a little bit?
I feel like the F80 is more snappier. Yeah.
All right, we're gonna go now to the drift analysis.
Okay.
So, start drift session. Go, going for the high score, going for 5 stars.
Come on, give me
on,
5,
fast.
give me
Put your foot in.
5.
Wow, all right, you got a 95% single drift. You drifted for 203 yards,
All right,
which
sounds
is
good.
2 football fields. They say the possible is 417, but they were counting, I think, when we were driving straight. So I think they need me to hit the button as you start sliding, which is
got it.
which is a little weird. 4.5. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's kind of like a game. It's like a video game.
Right, yeah.
In real life.
As a former drift judge, do you have any comments on the programmers of like how should they judge the drifting?
I wanted to get the best, right? So I tried my best to get more angle, more speed. So I don't know if I drive if I drive like a less angle, less speed, and is the scores gonna be a lot different?
Right.
Maybe something we need to find out. But seems like that was like a 4.5 star for me. So
Okay. All right. So if you think that was a 4.5, that's a
good
4.5.
judgment.
That's pretty cool. Use only on a track, kids.
That's right.
With significantly less tire tread, I left the 4.5-star General at the track and went to test the M3's road manners. For many years, or actually decades in the 90s and early 2000s, BMW, Audi, and Mercedes were all circling the sports sedan sun, but they were kind of staying in their own orbits. Audi was focused on technology and all-wheel drive and understeer. AMG products were noisy and fun and loud, but a little bit more luxurious, not nearly as nimble as the M3. And BMW was focused on being the ultimate driving machine and being this agile, do-everything car that you could drive to work and then take to the track later. And for a while, that was BMW's game and no one else was in their orbit. But in the last couple of years, the other cars have gotten more agile, they handle better, they've gotten faster, as is true with all cars, and everything is kind of moving together into the same space. And that's forced BMW to try to go even faster. Their springs have gotten stiffer, the handling's gotten sharper, sometimes to a jarring degree, and they've just had to keep chasing these lap times to keep their identity. So now we have the new M3, the most powerful M3, the strongest engine they've ever made. But is it the best M3? I'm not so sure. Let's go to the numbers. This has the new S58 engine. It is an evolution of the B58 that powered basically every BMW in the last generation. There are some differences though. This has a larger bore but shorter stroke. It has lower compression, and this is a twin turbo setup instead of a single turbo setup. That means it spools up nice and quickly. And it's fast. Of course it's fast. Modern cars today are fast. Doesn't even matter if you buy a $12,000 Kia or something that costs $1 million. With turbo technology and direct injection, everything makes a lot of power. And this makes a lot of power. 473 horsepower. This is not even the competition model. 406 pound-feet. It's very strong and it pulls really, really well. The power band in this is still about as flat as a table, but it feels more progressive than the last car. The last car, I felt like you got way too much torque, way too quickly, and it would just light the tires up, and you just didn't really get to like enjoy being deep in the throttle. There's almost no point in being beyond 50% throttle. This, it feels like they add the power a little bit more progressively. This car has the 6-speed manual transmission instead of the 8-speed automatic. Not in love with it. Not in love with it. The gates feel a little vague and inaccurate. It's notchy, but not really in a good way. I don't feel the guides of the gates on either side of the thing. It's just like, I feel like I'm separating two shopping carts or pushing them together. You know, there's just nothing and then it hits a wall. If I go over to 5th, I know it's over there somewhere, but I don't feel the positive engagement the way I have in some of like Honda's products. Now, the inside is extremely comfortable. I have all the gadgets I could want. BMW's media control puck center has gotten quicker and more intuitive to use. Apple CarPlay is seamless. The gauges are boring and hard to read, honestly. It's a really strange thing. They got rid of the analog gauges and even that hybrid that the M2 has that I love so much. So what you have now is a fully digital gauge that looks like an analog gauge. The rest of the interior is nice. I think the Brightwork looks good. I miss the chrome spokes on the steering wheel. This has carbon, because carbon is race car, but it's okay. And it's very roomy. I can sit behind myself without changing the seat. I'm perfectly comfortable back there. The trunk is huge. We have giant camera cases in it. Very practical car. A fast BMW M3 sedan is something I love in every generation they've made. But I love them not just for what they could do, but because of how they looked. So like with most new cars today, it's bigger than the last one. It's a lot longer. It's only 4 inches short of an E39 M5 actually. The wheelbase is 2 inches longer, which not only makes it more stable, but actually makes room for the selectable all-wheel drive system, which will be available summer of 2021. The front track is wider by 1.5 inches, which helps it be more agile and more stable at speed. They've also done a bunch of fancy geometry with kingpin and caster angle. And then of course, we come to the front. Give me a second. I need your help.
Zach, you never call Grandma.
I have to talk about the new M3.
Ugh.
And I don't know how to talk about the front of it.
Oh, because it looks like Bugs Bunny with roid rage?
Yeah, I don't want to say that.
Does the designer secretly hate BMW?
Right. I don't want to say that.
It makes Gary Busey's teeth look small.
I mean, dated reference, but accurate, yeah.
How'd they come up with it? Was it modeled after a whale's kidneys?
I guess, but I don't want to say that.
It's like I did with your grandfather. I ignored how it looked, and I appreciated what it did.
Oh, function, right. All right, thanks. Okay, function, forget form. This car needs a lot of air to stay cool. You have a twin-turbo engine making 473 horsepower, right? There's actually tons of heat exchangers in here. In the top, it pulls air into the main engine radiator, as well as the turbo intercooler, as well as coolant for the turbos itself. Down below, you have an oil cooler, and if you get the competition model, you get a trans-cooler as well. On the sides, it's pulling in air to cool the brakes. There's even a special brake duct to keep the brakes cool. Tons of air is going through the front of this. Tons and tons of air. Do other cars make lots of horsepower and have a differently shaped grille? Maybe, but we're not here to talk about that. Now, like most BMWs today, this has tons of adjustability. I can go into the M modes, which have these little buttons right here on the steering wheel, which are very convenient. And you can pre-select what you want that to mean. You can adjust the suspension for comfort or sport, the engine, how much power it's adding, how aggressive the throttle response is, and also the steering feel between normal and sport. Both of us found the M3 to be agile and planted, with Dai especially liking the steering response. It's powerful, but predictable, so it gets a 7 for approachability. The sound is neither exceptional nor offensive, kind of like chicken broth. Inside, the Consumer Electronics Show is wrapped in good-looking leather and plastic. Dai thinks it looks good aside from the nose, but I think it lacks the cohesiveness of the F80's design. A classic? Time will tell. It is a proper sports sedan, and that trait always draws a crowd. And while the looks are controversial, if a good-looking car that is subpar in driving dynamics can become a collectible, then why can't the reverse be true? Our scores average out to 43. Flawed though it is, this is still the best option out there if you need something that looks good in basically every environment, can carry a number of people in comfort and luxury, and also go to a racetrack and have a car that won't explode. BMW has put a lot of work into the cooling system to make even the regular M3 robust enough to handle track duty. So as long as you can deal with how it looks, it's probably a good choice.